The views expressed on the Jerry Cahill CF podcast are that of Jerry Cahill and guests, and not necessarily those of the Boomer Esiason Foundation. Nothing on the Jerry Cahill CF podcast should be considered medical advice. Such advice can only be given by a physician who is experienced with cystic fibrosis. The Boomer Esiason Foundation, Jerry Cahill and guests cannot be held responsible for any damage which may result from using the information on this podcast without the permission of your medical doctor.
Welcome to Jerry Cahill's Living, Breathing, Succeeding podcast series. This show, Never Say Never, was made possible through an unrestricted educational grant from Gilead to the Boomer Esiason Foundation. Today you'll meet Gary Klausner, 53 years old, born and raised in Long Island, New York. Gary is 20 years post-double lung transplant, celebrating life with his wife Robin and twin boys Matthew and Stephen. Gary is working full-time, and in his spare time, Gary enjoys pickup basketball games, tennis, and biking.
You know, one of the things that I think that I can attribute to my success most is that I wake up every day with that positive attitude, that never say never attitude. Nothing's going to stop me today. And I think that's something innate in a lot of patients with cystic fibrosis. It's that feeling that we all have, that we have to work that much harder, or we have to push ourselves that much more to get everything that we want in life. So I think it's that never say never attitude that I've had. Also, I've had an unbelievable support system. I couldn't have done it without my wife, Robin, my parents, my brother, my friends, and my medical team. I mean, I'm fortunate in that aspect. The other thing that I think is so important is being compliant. I was fortunate enough to get the second chance at life. I can probably count on two hands the number of times I've missed my medications in 20 years. It's so important to take your medications. And then, of course, incorporating exercise into my daily life. I don't even have to think about that anymore. It's just something, I know I brush my teeth in the morning. I know at the end of the day when I come home from work, I'm either at the gym, playing basketball, biking, tennis, as long as I'm being active. So I think those are probably the attributes that have led to my success. You know, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about once you get a transplant, all your troubles are over. But I try to explain to people that you're basically trading one set of circumstances for another. As a result of the transplant, I'm celebrating 20 years of life. However, due to a lot of the medications that I take, I now have CF-related diabetes. Due to the anti-rejection medications that I take, I now have what's called an elevated BUN and creatinine, which is I have kidney issues. And most recently, over the last 5 or 10 years, I'm now having skin cancer, basal cell carcinoma, that I have to deal with. But certainly by no means, I'll take whatever comes my way, as opposed to the alternative. Years ago, when we first got married, and I became ill, we had to change everything we did with our lives. We didn't go to movie theaters where there would be a lot of people in a movie theater at a time. In a restaurant, we would go at a time when it was less crowded, so I wasn't around people. And we just feel like now there's nothing I can't do in terms of getting up and going, do what we want. I'm working full time. I get to exercise. I get to go see my children. I get to travel, spend time with friends and family. It's just more than I could have ever imagined 15 or 20 years ago if you asked me what my life would have been back then. I just recently, a couple of years ago, celebrated my 50th birthday, and one of my bucket lists was to travel to Alaska. Robin and I took a helicopter to a glacier and we went dog sledding. There's nothing I can't do right now. I'm very fortunate. I'm back to work full time. I love working, and exercise now is just part of my life. I know that every night when I come home, I'm either at the gym working out, I either play basketball, I'll play tennis, and in the summertime I'll go bike riding. Rejection is something that all of us in the transplant community, it's just kind of understood that at some point, for no rhyme or reason, it can happen. I had a rejection early on after my transplant, maybe after about 6 months. I had a mild rejection, and believe it or not, 12 years post-op or 15 years post-op out of no place. It just so happened by dumb luck, I went down to Duke for my regular checkups, and sure enough, the bronchoscopy showed that there was a rejection. And had I not gone down to Duke for the bronchoscopy, at that moment, it could have gone on for months after that. And fortunately, we nipped it in the bud, we caught it in its early stage, and they treated it. But rejection is something that it can happen at any point, at any time. I think a lot of what happens is just dumb luck. I mean, why does one set of lungs work in one person and another set of lungs doesn't work in another? So I think a lot of it is just out of our control. If my donor was in the room with me right now, the first thing I would do is give her a big hug and tell her that everything that I've achieved in the last 20 years is a direct result of the ultimate sacrifice of you and your family. And I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart for saving my life, my wife's life, and my children's life. And I would love to have had the opportunity to meet you and give you a big hug. The last thing I would like to say is that I don't say it enough, but Robin has been with me for the 25 years through thick and thin. This is not something that she signed up for, but she stood by me my entire time, and I can't thank her enough, and I look forward to the next 25 years with her.